Thank you, Sir Charles. It's a pleasure to appear before you once again. I'm incredibly grateful to the Honourable Member for Washington and Sunderland West, an area where I first stood for Parliament 41 years ago, for securing this debate on preventing sexual violence in conflict. She made an excellent speech, and I will try and respond to much of what she has said, but I will look at all the ideas that she put forward, and any that I don't cover during my remarks I will write to her about afterwards. I'm also incredibly grateful for the contributions of all honourable members. I will try to respond to the points raised, but this has been an outstanding debate, and I feel very privileged to be able to try and respond for the government. My honourable friend for Strangford said that he had never known so much violence and misery in the world as he sees today, and he always brings so much to these debates. It is one of the reasons why Britain has put aside £1 billion this year to meet humanitarian need, and I'm grateful to him for recognising that the UK is a global leader in that respect. The Honourable Lady for Pontypridd, I thought, made an outstanding speech. She spoke up about the horrendous events of October the 7th and the lack of response by parts of the international community, and she called for the immediate release of the hostages, and I thought she spoke with a great feeling when she said that Me Too, unless you are a Jew, has been something that has resonated with parts of the community, and she spoke also with great eloquence about Ukraine and Sudan. And the House will be grateful for what she has said, and I hope that many people who are not able to be here tonight will read the power of her contribution. The Honourable Lady for Walthamstow mentioned the importance of the International Day to End CRSV on the 19th of June. She talked about the importance of focusing very directly on the victims of this dreadful violence, and she made the point that the whole House will echo, that there can be no impunity. And the Honourable Gentleman for Islington North, the former leader of the Labour Party, he spoke about the DRC, he spoke about Goma and the terrible humanitarian tragedy which for years has unfolded in the Kivus, an area I have visited over the last 20 years on a number of occasions, as has he. What the government does is to urge all of the military forces to lay down their arms and support the various different political processes, particularly in Nairobi and Luanda, to try and ensure that there's a political track to end this terrible violence. And on the specific thing, he asked me what more could be done on the issue of minerals. He will know of the work of the EITI, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, and the government wants to see more effort made in that respect to follow and track the minerals. The Honourable Lady for Aberdeen North said at the beginning that this is a difficult subject to talk about. She then did so very well. She again spoke about there being no tolerance of impunity and the terrible legacy from the teenage young women who were taken by Boko Haram. She talked about the role of women, women's voice in conflict resolution and the work of ending GBV, and again ensuring the importance of accountability. And the Honourable Lady who speaks for the opposition for West Ham talked about the whole of the subject today, but in particular about Sudan, the terrible events, the particular role that Britain has through the Troika and through holding the pen at the UN. She talked about Darfur, the dreadful situation in Al-Fasher, about which the government has spoken up, the clear evidence in Darfur of ethnic cleansing. And again, the demands of the international community are that the troops should return to barracks and enable the humanitarians to operate in these dreadful circumstances and open a political track as soon as possible. And Britain is supporting the collection through open source means of evidence. We will make sure that that evidence is retained for future use. And on Ethiopia, she again focused on the situation there. Britain supports the Pretoria Agreement. We've done a lot of work to help to head off famine conditions, including in Geneva just a few weeks ago, supporting a replenishment, which I co-chaired with the Ethiopian foreign minister, and which raised £610 million. And she also talked about the harrowing evidence and work of NGOs like Save the Children. I'm sure the entire House agrees that conflict-related sexual violence, or CRSV in short, is not an inevitable consequence of war. It is morally abhorrent, illegal, and does not discriminate. It affects women and girls and men and boys, as we have heard too, and has devastating consequences, and yet it continues to take place in conflicts around the world, often used as a deliberate tactic to terrorize entire communities. We are witnessing its horrific impacts in Ukraine, Sudan and Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, just to name a few. And the whole House was particularly horrified by the reports which have been mentioned today of sexual violence on and since the 7th of October. And the Honourable Lady spoke eloquent about this in her opening remarks, as did the Right Honourable Lady for Barking, about the appalling violence perpetrated by Hamas on that day. I'm afraid I won't because of the time, but if I have a second at the end, I promise my right honourable friend I will. We have clearly and unequivocally condemned all allegations of reports of CRSV in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, and led calls for a UN Security Council debate on this specific issue. And we continue to call for thorough investigations, for hostages to be released immediately, and for detainees to be treated with dignity and in line with international law. And we have also, on a number of occasions, including at the UN Security Council, offered PSVI expertise and tools to help ensure victims and survivors of CRSV receive the support that they need. Sir Charles, 12 years since the launch of the Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict initiative, the PSVI in short, I pay tribute to Lord Ahmed as the Prime Minister's Special Representative on Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict, Lord Haig, who started the exceptional focus by the UK on this, and Baroness Hellick for their tireless efforts. The UK is at the forefront of the fight to end this heinous crime, and I want to highlight very briefly 5 steps to demonstrate the impact of our work. First, since 2012, we have used our influence and convening power to draw global attention to this issue. Take, for example, the PSVI conference we hosted in London 2 years ago. We brought together over 1,000 delegates, including survivors, expert states and multilateral organisations. I personally led several sessions at that meeting, and collectively we succeeded in getting 54 countries to sign an ambitious political declaration to deliver change. At the conference, we also announced the International Alliance on Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict, and Lord Ahmed launched the alliance last year, and it brings together a range of global actors to prevent and respond to CRSV. Its membership continues to grow. It now has 26 members, including governments, multilateral organisations, civil society, and survivors. And we are working closely with the current chair, Colombia, to drive action through the alliance. And we have launched the PSVI strategy, backed by £12.5 million, with 4 clear objectives: to strengthen global response, to prevent sexual violence in conflict, to promote justice, and to support survivors. Second, we are coming up with creative solutions to prevent these crimes. For example, Britain's flagship Watch What Works Impact at Scale programme is encouraging and supporting innovative ideas. We've invested £67.5 million into the second phase of the programme. This is the biggest global commitment by any government to prevent gender-based violence. Third, we are setting a global benchmark by giving survivors a say in the decisions that affect them. Britain has appointed 2 PSVI survivor champions, called Basia Husu and Nadine Tunasi, and established a survivor advisory group to put survivors' voices at the heart of policy proposals. And since 2018, we've committed almost £8 million to the Global Survivors Fund to provide psychosocial and educational support for survivors. We know how important it is to ensure that we gather information from survivors safely. That is why 2 years ago we launched the Murad Code with the Yazidi human rights activist and Nobel Prize winner Nadia Murad to collect information responsibly and ethically. Fourth, Sir Charles, we are working to make these crimes punishable by law. Impunity may be the global norm, but that is unacceptable. The UK is taking steps to change it, and we have made some progress. We've sanctioned 14 perpetrators over the last 2 years, and we are boosting the capacity of countries to investigate and prosecute these crimes. For example, in Ukraine, we are supporting the Office of the Prosecutor General to investigate them effectively. We are also backing the draft UN Crimes Against Humanity Convention to make the global legal framework stronger and more effective, and we are working with the International Criminal Court to help survivors engage with courts using technology. I'm very grateful to Baroness Hellick, who I mentioned earlier, who is helping us to find new innovative solutions to tackle impunity, and I agree we still have a long way to go. Finally, I want to share 2 examples of the tangible impact we have had on the ground. Since 2012, we have deployed our PSVI team of experts over 90 times across the world. These highly trained independent individuals provide direct support to national and international bodies. They have helped plan missions, convene workshops, and supported governments execute their projects. UK programmes have also contributed to vital legislative changes in Bosnia and Herzegovina recently. Now, these changes will advance the rights of survivors and children born of CRSV, for example, by enabling them to access finance for higher education. To conclude, the 5 steps I've highlighted show that we have come a long way and our work matters. But there can be no doubt, particularly from what we have heard today, that we need to go further still, and our efforts are bearing fruit. We are making progress. The UK will continue to drive sustained, united and innovative action globally. That is the only way we can consign conflict-related sexual violence to the history books. And in the minute I have left, I give way to my right honourable friend.
Grateful to my right honourable friend. Does he agree with me that on October the 7th, the mass rapes were not a byproduct of the attacks, they were an integral part of the plan, as I said earlier, to provoke Israel? If that is proven, does not that mean that the people who planned the attacks, as well as the perpetrators themselves, must be held to account in international courts?
I completely agree, Sir Charles, with what my right honourable friend is saying about accountability. On October the 7th, as we know, there was the greatest murder of Jewish people at any time in one day since the Holocaust and the end of the Second World War. And the impact of that, about which we have heard so graphically today, underlines why it is so important that we continue this work which we are making progress on, because, above all, we have the unity, the drive and the support in all parts of the House, and that gives Britain a particular locus and focus internationally to make sure that this work is effectively pursued.
Thank you, Minister. Sharon Hodgson.
Thank you very much. Can I just say, start by thanking all speakers